Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here. My first time at your beautiful campus here. I finally got to see it this morning. I came in last night and I couldn't see anything, so it's actually a really nice place. You guys were lucky. My college experience wasn't so great. So for those of you who have no idea who I am and just need a place to sleep, I'm Steve Blum. I'm a voice actor from Los Angeles. I've been in the business for about 20 years and started in anime, and hopefully I'll be doing that for the rest of my career too. It certainly didn't pay the bills, so it's a labor of love for me, and continues to be. And since then I branched off into original animation and video games and movies and commercials and pretty much anything else they'll pay me for because I'm a vocal whore. So I think we're just going to keep this really casual and easy, and I'll just take questions from you guys. So just fire away when you're ready to shoot up your hand, and I'll try to answer as best I can. Are we waiting for some technical thing? Should I stop? No? Okay. Sorry, YouTube. Okay. All right, so fire away to shoot up a hand, and I'll try to answer as best I can. Okay.
So for The Intruder 2, when did you find out you were working with Sonny Strait and the two Toms finally got to meet? Like, what was your reaction there?
I was so excited, and unfortunately I didn't get to work with him in the same room. I've never met Sonny. After all these years, I've still not met him. We've corresponded through Twitter and I think email, and seems to be a great guy. I love his work. He's super talented. But when I found out that they were actually going to combine our characters for his character, basically, I had a little fanboy squeak. He was there at my humble beginnings, and I didn't know Sonny back then either. I didn't know of him. I didn't know anybody in voiceover back then. I was pretty green, and I didn't even realize that somebody had voiced Tom before. Normally, if I find out that somebody has voiced a character that I'm taking over, I'll send them a letter, or I'll call them, and I'll ask their permission, make sure they're not, losing something over this. We try to be very respectful of the industry that way. And all these years, I felt a little bit guilty that I couldn't do that with Sonny. So a few years back, I received a big stack of original Tom 1 postcards that Cartoon Network had sent me. And I sent him the whole stack, and he responded, and we sort of became, friends a little bit, I guess. I don't know how he thinks about me still, but no, I love Sonny. It was so much fun working on that, and so much fun to bring Intruder back after all these years, and the fans loved it. It was so great to see the response from it. So one of my favorite things to do on Toonami. So thank you for staying up late. Hey, don't be shy, guys. Come on, it's just me. We're friends.
Is there a common voice or character that people ask you to do, just like, hey, do this voice more than any other?
It actually depends on where I am in the world. It's kind of funny. Every location seems to have their preference. If I go to Australia and New Zealand, Wolverine is really popular. For some reason, I don't know why. I don't know why. Spike is always a favorite, but it's basically my speaking voice, so it's not really much of a stretch for me. Guillemon, we were just talking about Guillemon a few minutes ago. That one is requested a lot. And it's funny because Guillemon is usually requested by an older audience. Kids don't know, kids don't care, and if I do it in front of kids, they usually freak out. Tell their mom that some old man is saying weird things to them. So, and Amon lately has been big, and now with Star Wars, Zed has been very popular. So, yeah, it just depends on where you're in.
So one of the questions I asked while you were over here, I thought the answer was really cool. You mentioned when you do work for video games, it's a lot different because you don't really have anything and you're on a time crunch. So I asked, with a time crunch like that, how do you set a direction for a character and for your acting?
Yeah, it's really tough. We were just talking about Mass Effect, and on that particular game, all I had was a picture of the character and the director sitting there in a stack of paper about that tall. And they said, all right, we've got a ton to do today. You've got to just knock out as much as you possibly can. But the director is so good. Her name is Jeannie McSwain. I worked with her on many things. And Jeannie is one of these directors who is so laser focused. She holds the context for the entire game. And she sees it basically as a big cinematic production. And without her holding the context for me, I have no idea where to go. And so I'll have these lines. She'll let me do an intuitive read first. And oddly enough, those most often work. But thankfully, she's there to guide me and tell me what my interaction is going to be with the other characters. I never even met the other characters on that game. And Jennifer Hale I've known for many years. But many other people on the game I had no idea. Mark Muir I didn't meet until cons years later. So it's sort of a weird, isolated existence. And we really rely very heavily on our directors. That's a great question. Thanks. All right. Back here.
What is your relationship typically when you're on the job with other voice actors? Like you guys go out and get lunch or something?
We hate each other. They're disgusting. It's actually one of the greatest group of people I've ever worked with, and that's why I've stayed in voiceover for so long. I've had many, many other careers, and this community of voice actors is so strong that we consciously make an effort to get together before, after, and at any possible occasion that we can. We've become a big family. And one of the biggest challenges, though, is that we're all so busy and we're all working on different projects. And because of the way games are structured or many other areas of the industry, we're not working together in the same room. So we rely on conventions and these travel circuits to actually hang out and have a beer together. It's kind of sad we have to travel all the way across the world sometimes to hang out. But they've become my best friends. And we are so close, in fact, that my director on Cowboy Bebop, one of my very early shows, is now my girlfriend, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn. And we've been in this same social circle for so many years as friends. We were both in other relationships for all these years, but 17 years later, we're together as a couple now. And it's amazing because all of her friends are all of my friends. We're all one gigantic, incestuous family. It's fantastic. It's kind of fantastic. Yeah, I felt like she had been my sister all these years, and now we get to take it a step further. It's awesome.
Okay, I read this article a while ago where they said people like hate hearing their own voice like recorded and played back. So you ever is there anything you've ever done like where you've heard it, just like makes you want to cringe, I guess, or hide from it? Or?
No, I love the sound of me. Recently I saw a version of Goku that I had done years and years and years ago, and I was sitting on a panel with Sean Schimmel, who has voiced him in pretty much everything else. And bless you. And I watched my performance on this. This fan had sent it to me just before my panel with him, and I'd never seen it before. I recorded it so many years ago in a game, and it was horrible. I sucked so bad. It was so stilted, and they wanted it exactly the same as the original Japanese. And I just sat at the panel and I went, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, you're so much better than me, and I'm so glad you got this job. So there have been a few of those, and often we don't really have control with what they do. We were just talking about that over here too, that we'll do dozens and dozens of takes sometimes on a line, and we don't know what they're going to choose in post-production. And sometimes I'll watch a show or I'll see a little segment of the game, and why did they choose that? Come on, I know I did 6 better reads than that. But you have to let it go. It'll beat you up inside if you kind of hold on to that stuff. Great.
Are there any characters that you've wanted to do a voiceover for but didn't get the part?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. It's funny because for years I wanted to do Batman. I really wanted to do the voice of Batman, and I thought he'd be right in my wheelhouse, and I'd be able to do it pretty naturally. And then I hear Kevin Conroy and even Roger Craig Smith recently, and Troy Baker's done a version, I think, in Lego games. They're all better than I can do. So, and they're all my friends. So I've changed my relationship with lusting after roles that I don't have. In the very beginning, I kind of felt that way. I want to do that. I wanted to be Goofy for years, and then I meet the guy who does Goofy, and it's like, oh man, you're so much better than I could ever do that. And he's become a friend too, so I wouldn't want to take his job. So I don't really think about the voices that I haven't done. I'm so blessed with being able to do the voices that I have, and constantly surprised that I keep getting hired to do these iconic characters. It's incredible. I'm getting to do something like Wolverine or Starscream even. Step into those shoes after so many people have done it before me, and people accept it, and they don't call me and threaten my life. I'm so grateful with all of that I don't think about the stuff that I'm not doing. So, and like I said, a lot of times my friends are doing it anyway.
I know a lot of people know you for kind of the more dark, gravelly voice characters, but those who actually look into your filmography and stuff know you do voices like REcon from Gurren Lagann.
That's right, hon. When you screw it in, give it a hard manly twist.
So when did you find out you could do those characters, or if you at all always known, when was the first opportunity you got to do those kind of different voices?
Wow, I've been doing all kinds of voices since I was a little kid, and I never expected to do it professionally. So, like everything else, it's all a surprise to me. I can't believe I get to do it. I'm trying to think back. Wow, it's hard to even remember what the early voices were. I think Gilmon was one of the earlier ones, and some of the kids in the Digimon shows.
I would do these high-pitched little kids. Can't do them as well now, but...
I would do those and from Digimon, which was pretty up there, which was basically the same as Crash Bandicoot. I think I booked that from doing my Poromon thing. So just getting to go in a booth and go, "Booyah!" was pretty awesome. And it does surprise people because a lot of people think that this is the only voice that I can do, and I've been doing tons of them for years and years and years. People have their certain frame of focus. The short answer is I don't know. I really don't know. I don't remember, and I've been doing, like I said, I've been doing this for like 20 years, so I don't remember my chronology. I'll have to look it up on my IMDb. I don't pay attention to that stuff at all. It's funny. One of the great things about coming to conventions is learning about my career. So, and that's true, because I'm not a gamer, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of games. I found out in 2012 that I earned the Guinness World Record for doing the most voices in video games. And it took me 3 months to go through my IMDb with my agent to figure out if I was actually in those games or not. We had to verify everything so that I could receive the award. And I had no idea. I'm looking through these things, and half the time when I'm auditioning for the games and even when I'm working on them, they're under a code name. The characters' names are sometimes changed, and if I don't play the game and people don't tell me about it, I have no recollection at all. And so at these conventions, people will come up and they'll ask me to do a voice for a character, and I have no idea what they're talking about. I didn't even know that I was in that project. So that's one of the great things about coming to these is thank you guys for teaching me about what I do. Just an idiot.
Yeah, so kind of jumping off of that, my friend actually sent me a question, and he was saying, what's it like playing every extra in video games? So I guess what's it like having multiple kind of roles you have to fulfill?
It keeps me from hurting people. I have a lot of voices in my head, I think, and if I didn't have this outlet, I'd probably be dangerous. I actually love it. I love doing incidental characters, especially ones that are hard for people to recognize. There's so many of my characters that people are able to pick out like that, and so especially in video games where I'm doing sometimes 10 to 20 characters in a game, it's fun for me because the characters are in and out. Sometimes they have very short lifespans. There's no commitment to them. I don't have to worry about remembering the voice next time because they're a puddle of goo at the end of the scene. So I love it. I love all forms of voice acting, and that's actually one of my favorite things to do is just do these little incidental characters and put as much juice into them as I possibly can. Thank your friend for writing in. Folks at home, you had a question?
How did you get into voice acting?
How did I get into it? By accident. Well, like I said, I've been doing voices since I was a little kid. I used to get in trouble for doing it. Rob Paulson talks about that all the time. He gets paid for what he used to get in trouble for. And I had several other careers, and at one point I was working for a film company. At that time it was called Empire Entertainment. They made Reanimator and Ghoulies and a lot of those crazy movies, the sci-fi cheapo B movies. And I was working in the mailroom, and the head of the mailroom was casting for a Japanimation project. And nobody knew how to really make these things at the time. They didn't even have the proper equipment at the studio. And he said that I would get free breakfast and free lunch if I would come and audition on a Saturday. And I was a starving musician working in day jobs, a driver and PA in this crappy mailroom. And I thought, free breakfast, free lunch, that's all I need to hear. And some of my friends were professional actors and also auditioning for this thing. And he said, if you get it, we're going to pay you $7 a line to do this. And I said, wow, that's amazing. That's probably more money than I've ever made in my life. And so I went in and I just did this creature voice. And now they have technology, it's all digital. we had 3 beeps, rhythmic beeps, and then we go in and it's timed exactly so you know when the mouth is going to open, so you know how to sync on camera. And we didn't have any of that back then. And most times they would have time codes at least, so you could watch this super fast running time code and try to catch it when they would tell you. We didn't even have that. So I had the director standing behind me, tapping me on the shoulder when to go. I had never done it before. I was terrified. I thought I was going to pee myself the entire session. But they showed me this, the first thing that I was auditioning for was a creature ripping the arm off of another creature and I think beating him to death with it. So they said, can you do that in the picture? And I said, I'll try, we'll see what happens. And so they showed me the thing and they said, all right, what would that sound like? And I went, and they said, okay, you're hired. And I hit the sync perfectly. I happened to have a natural rhythm sense because I had some music training. And so they hired me on the spot. I ended up doing 26 episodes of that show. They gave me the main bad guy in the show, which I thought was a terrible mistake because I wasn't an actor yet. And because at that time they had all the actors together, I could watch them do their scenes before I came in and did mine. So I basically learned by stealing everything that my friends were doing. And I faked them out, so I got the role and did that for 26 episodes. And I just did it for fun, really. And the money became less and less, actually. They realized that was way too much money to be paying us. And so the money became less and less, and the working conditions were not always too good. But it led to so many other things. That particular company became successful after that first show. That show was called The Guyver. And it was pretty successful for the company at the time, and those guys were doing a lot of other productions. It eventually led to Cowboy Bebop, which eventually led to everything else in my career. So I just stuck with it for fun, and I was working 3 other jobs while I was doing anime. It certainly didn't pay the rent, and I had kids, and I had to support them. And so I was still working at that same film studio for 15 years while I was doing anime, and actually became head of marketing. I had this beautiful office on Hollywood and Vine, and was traveling to the Cannes Film Festival, and it was a really great job, but I didn't like a lot of the people that I was working with, and I didn't like how people were treated in the film business. There was just no gratitude, and the people that were really giving everything to make our product better for very little money were getting cheated. So I just couldn't stand that. I couldn't live with myself doing that anymore. And it sucked all the creativity out of it for me. So at one point, God bless you. At one point I booked a 7-Eleven commercial. When I turned 40 years old, I was going through a divorce, and I booked a 7-Eleven commercial, and I thought, oh, this is my ticket out. This is how I can do voiceover full-time. And I can actually enjoy going to work every day again, and still support my kids and get through this crazy time in my life. And then the union went on strike right after I quit my job. And so I was out of work for about a year and a half, and lived on credit cards, and really struggled, and just took odd jobs where I could. And then eventually it started picking up again. And about 10 years ago or so, I started to really be able to make a living at it. And fortunately, it all worked out. But it's not the path I would recommend for anybody trying to get into voiceover. It was really, really hard. And it's still a challenge. I mean, I'm still getting fired after every job. I have to audition 30 times for every job that I book now, even at this point in my career. And until 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, my dad was asking me if I had a backup plan. He was a retired physician, and he still couldn't believe that I was going to be successful in voiceover until I invited him to a convention in Los Angeles. It was called Anime Expo. I was doing one of these panels for about 2,000 people, and it was the only thing he'd ever been to. He had never seen one of my shows, didn't believe that people really cared about the work that I did. And he came with my mom and my sister, and they're sitting in the audience. And I brought him in this nice black car. I really wanted to do it up for him. And he's sitting in the audience, and he looks over at my sister, and he goes, "They're all here to see him?" She said, "Yeah, Dad, he's a little bit famous." He goes, "No." And I walk on stage, everybody screamed. It was a big convention, 60,000 people at this convention. And my dad came up to me afterwards and he goes, "All right, I'm going to stop bothering you about the backup." So it finally worked out. But if you're interested in doing voiceover, there's so many more resources that will help you not to make the same mistakes that I did along the path. And the best one that I recommend is iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. It's a blog that D. Bradley Baker writes, and he's one of the greatest voice actors of all time, in my opinion. He's an unbelievable creature voice actor. He was all the clones in Clone Wars, and Klaus in, what's it, American Dad? American Dad, yeah, the fish, the German fish, yeah. Brilliant, brilliant voice actor, continually working more than anybody I know, and he writes this free blog. iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. It has links and information on how the business works and what to avoid. And there are so many predators out there that if there are people, especially in Los Angeles, there are teachers who, if they hear you want to get into voiceover, they'll charge you an enormous amount of money and teach you a class that doesn't have the right information, and they're not working professionals. So Dee's blog will really guide you in the right direction. I would highly recommend reading everything in there. I hope that's helpful. And, this particular tattoo, this one right here, was sort of a happy accident. I came in to meet with a guy about a big Hawaiian piece. I finally committed to do a big piece. I have this big Hawaiian piece up here. And the guy I was getting the tattoo from wanted to meet a couple of times and really discuss the things, because it was sort of a spiritual thing for him. He was a tribal chief. It's an authentic Hawaiian tattoo. And he wanted it to mean something. And so when I was in there for the first meeting, he said, well, do you want to do something else while we're working on this? And I said, well, I don't know what I do. And he said, well, what's important to you? And I said, well, I don't know, Cowboy Bebop, it's this show that I did a long time ago, and it led to so many other things in my career, but I don't want a cartoon on myself. I don't want to put a cartoon tattoo. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just didn't want that. And he said, so what do you do every day? He started asking me all these personal questions. And I said, well, I record every day. And, oh, a sound bite, that would be really cool. And so I went back to my home studio and I looked up the very last episode of Bebop, because I figured it was the shortest thing that I could grab one word from. And so it's the word bang from the very last episode. He gets shot up. No spoilers, but he gets shot up and he says bang, and then something happens. And so I actually grabbed the video clip from that, ripped the audio, and that is exactly what it looks like. That's the audio file for bang. So I had that put on there. And when I brought it into him, I wanted it to be about that big, and he goes, no, dude, you got to go big on that. and mainly because with this, I didn't know that about tattoos. If you're doing little thin lines like that, they're going to bleed into each other after a while. And so he wanted to make it as big as possible so that it would maintain its shape. But what I didn't know is that he went over every single one of those lines individually about 8 times until it was just almost squirting blood. It was disgusting. And but it kind of made it a rite of passage. Because he was a tribal chief, he had sort of ritualistic things that he would like to do. And his partner, the guy who owned the tattoo parlor, had all these drums set out throughout the place. And they had this little ceremony that they would do. They had just seen each other for the first time in a while. One of them was traveling. And they had just gotten back together. They did this head-to-head thing. One of the guys was a Maori. And they said, let's play some drums. And he goes, well, I'm just finishing his tattoo right now. Can you wait a minute? He goes, no, let's do it now. He goes, you play it? I said, yeah. I said, no, come on, join us. And I said, but it's raw. And he goes, no, come on, man. It'll be great. And so we're having this drum circle, and blood is literally squirting onto the floor. He goes, yeah, now you're one of us. And it was sort of a rite of passage. It was very ritualistic, and tribal, and awesome. Yeah, so very meaningful tattoo to me. I like it there just because it reminds me from whence I came, and if I ever start to get a big head, it reminds me of those humble beginnings and how difficult it was. And to be of service to other people who are coming into the business now too. Thanks. Great question.
Just because you still know people on the Cowboy Bebop production team, how's the live action movie coming along? Or is it?
I don't know. I heard rumblings that they might pick it up again. Originally, Keanu Reeves was signed to. Yes, I know he was signed for the role of Spike. A lot of people were concerned about that. I met him in an airport several years ago and approached him, half as fanboy and half out of curiosity. And I just wanted to get his take on it. And he was really nice, first of all, and he had seen the whole series. And after I introduced myself, he goes, oh, I know who you are. I said, really? Keanu Reeves knows who I am. And he was really cool and really invested in it. He said, you know, I just want to do a good job on this. He goes, I know how much the fans care about this, and I really want to do a good job on it. And my concern is that I'm getting too old to do my own stunts. He really wanted to do his own stunts. And he said the other issue was that the script was incredible, but he said it would cost like $500 million to produce. And so they had to cut it down or get much bigger financing to make it the way they really wanted to make it. And so at that point, it was dead. It was kind of dead in the water. But I read somewhere a couple months ago that they're trying to revive it, and I hope that's the case. And as far as I know, Watanabe's-san is still considering executive producing it. So I think as long as they give him some control over it, it could be a really good thing. I mean, it really lends itself to, especially with the technology that's available now, they can make an amazing film out of it. It would just have to be done right, or a lot of people would get threatened.
Is there any like show or movie that you've done voiceover work for that you can't watch because you think you did a horrible job?
Well, that Goku thing, I know there's no way ever. The answer to that is tough for me because I haven't seen most of my work. I don't know. I'd have to watch more to be able to say that. Most things I'm okay with for the most part. I would have chosen different takes for certain things. But I'm a pretty good audience. As long as I've got a tub of popcorn in front of me, I can watch almost anything. And I try not to judge myself too harshly. There's too many other things to worry about. I try to just get invested in the story. If the story is good, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing in it. I just try to blend in with the other characters, and if my performance doesn't stand out, I'm a lot happier because it means that I'm part of the ensemble and I'm doing something to make the show better. So that's the way I try to approach it. And if there is something that's bothering me about something I'm watching, I try to concentrate on another character. So I haven't really seen anything that I really regret. And also in my earlier shows that I have seen that I really sucked, I just know that I was green at that point. I wasn't an experienced actor. So I have a lot of compassion for myself, which it has to start with the self. And I go, okay, that sucked, but that's where I was at that point. It's like my autobiography. It's reading or seeing something that I was doing back then and just being okay with it. That's what I was at that point in my evolution.
Have you ever met Watanabe and Yoko Kanno? And how often, if ever, are they involved with the editing process?
I missed them by about 10 minutes. I was supposed to go to dinner with them one year. I was at a film market in Santa Monica, and the Japanese production company took us all out for a sushi dinner, and I couldn't get off work in time. And they had just left the dinner, and I've been regretting that for years. That was about 15 years ago, something like that. And I've regretted that. I've regretted missing that meeting since then. So I hope that I get to meet them at some point. I'm a huge fan. And honestly, I don't know what their direct involvement is.
Well, I mean, just people like that, like the original Japanese director or anybody involved with the original Japanese production. How often are they involved with the English?
They're generally not involved yet. We get the finished production tracks, and we kind of go. We have to make our own version of it. And so there's usually a writer. I was an ADR writer for years. I would conform the original Japanese to English and fit it to all the American lip flaps. But yes, it's generally put in the hands of an American production team when we go, and they'll send a representative from the distribution company, whoever's holding the rights. So for years, Bondi would always have somebody in the room with us, kind of gently guiding us along, or sometimes not so gently. But the original producers are generally not involved at that point. And I kind of wish they were, because it might keep it a little bit closer to their original vision in some cases. But one of the greatest things that we heard after Bebop was that Watanabe approved, and he said that some elements of it he actually liked better than the original Japanese version. That was a huge compliment. We just wanted to make it good. We wanted to do it on our own. So.
Definitely did that.
No, thank you. I had very little to, yeah, of course.
You've said a few times now that you don't see a lot of your own work. When you go to audition for roles, do you send in like a demo reel or a paper resume, or how do you show people what you've done when you go into audition?
Well, in the early days, I would mail out cassettes. I did a demo reel, and I would mail out cassettes, and I would have a picture and a resume on the back, typically like on camera people do. Now I've got an agent, and I'm on her website. My reel is on her website. And for auditions now, they kind of know that I'm at least capable of doing the job, and they want to hear me do their words. And so 99% of the auditioning that I do is from my home studio. And so my agent will just send me all of the copy at home, and I'll just print out a stack of stuff, and I'll just crank them out from my home studio and upload them as MP3 files, email. And that's the way it works most of the time. For callbacks, if I do get callbacks, sometimes we'll be asked to go in the studio and read live for the directors and producers. On big things like Star Wars, we had 2 or 3 callbacks, I think. And that's when it gets nerve-wracking, is when you're in the studio with people who really know this stuff and have been working on it for a couple of years. You want to do a good job, and so you have to I treat every audition as though it's a job anyway. That was something I learned a long time ago. So even if I'm in my home studio, I imagine those people sitting on the other side of the microphone, and I really invest as much as I possibly can. Yeah, but it's very solitary work. You know? Who hasn't asked one before? Back here.
Hi. I've got a couple of questions, but I'll just stick to one.
Oh, we can do 2. Come on.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so you voiced Sauron in a couple of Lord of the Rings games. I feel like I'm insulting for asking, but how much is it digitally altered, and how much of it is your voice?
I haven't heard what they did to
Okay.
it. I would imagine they would have digitally altered it. I think I have recorded it down here somewhere. Was it deep?
Yeah, it was really deep. You know?
Okay, yeah, I recorded it pretty deep, and
Yeah.
I would imagine they pitched it down even farther.
Right.
Sauron, we re-recorded that 3 times, because they kept changing the lines. So I have no idea what it ended up sounding like.
It sounded awesome. So.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, because they said they might even combine it with another voice. And
I think they did that.
Yeah.
It was like 2 or 3 voices were like
oh, cool.
singing together. It was really awesome.
I hope there's something on YouTube. I gotta look it up now.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I was so excited to play that. That was really cool. Yeah, anything Lord of the Rings is awesome.
Yeah. And then I'm a huge Mass Effect fan, so like, what was it like on like set with a bunch of the other voice actors? I just love Grunt, so I mean, what was it like playing him?
A Grunt was so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to play a big baby who could kill you. That was, it was awesome. The lines they wrote for him were great.
Yeah.
People tell me all over the world that he was a great companion
Yeah.
in the game, and the lines, the writing was so good for that. We ended up having sort of an iconic laugh, which is always fun.
Yeah.
Because laughs is for good characters and bad characters. You want to have something that's cool and memorable, and it just became something simple. It was cool. Straight to the face, Shepard.
Yes.
It was awesome, and that they pitched down also. They pitched that down, I think, a full semitone. I recorded him way down here, but they still pitched him even farther down. Yeah, really, really fun, and that was the one character that I almost cosplayed. There was a group that was supposedly building a costume for me, and it ended up not working out. But I hope I get to do that at some point. Just be able to walk around Comic-Con without getting bothered. It'd be really fun. Doing the voice behind people. It'd be fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much for coming, and I'm going to do some autographs every.